She was depressed, broke, a single mother on welfare, rejected over and over by publishers, told her story would never sell. But she wrote anyway, on napkins, on cafe tables, in stolen moments while her baby slept. This is the story of J.K. Rowling, the woman who created Harry Potter, not from magic, but from resilience, pain, and a relentless belief in her own voice. Born in 1965 in Gloucestershire, England, Joanne Rowling had a love for storytelling from an early age. At just 6 years old, she wrote her first book about a rabbit with measles. But while the fantasy in her head was vivid, her reality became increasingly difficult. She had a strained relationship with her father, and watched her mother deteriorate from multiple sclerosis, a long, slow decline that broke her heart. Joanne later said, "My teenage years were not happy. I was insecure, anxious, and often felt like an outsider." After university, she worked various jobs, including one as a secretary, but none fulfilled her. Then, during a train ride from Manchester to London in 1990, the idea of a boy wizard named Harry Potter came to her in a flash.
Harry Potter came to me on a train in 1990. I was sitting just staring out of the window, and the idea just fell out of nowhere. It was the purest stroke of inspiration I've ever had in my life, and I've been writing about him ever since. My absolute ambition for the book was not that it...
She didn't have a pen. She didn't write a single word down. But the idea took hold, and never let go. Joanne moved to Portugal to teach English and escape the grief of her mother's death. She fell in love, got married, and gave birth to a daughter, Jessica. But the relationship quickly turned abusive and toxic. In 1993, she fled back to the UK with her baby and a suitcase of half-finished pages, the early chapters of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. She was a single mother, living on government benefits, barely surviving. She was diagnosed with clinical depression, and described herself as poor as it is possible to be in modern Britain without being homeless. At her lowest, she contemplated suicide. She later said, "I was the biggest failure I knew. But rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life." Despite everything, the shame, the isolation, the fear, Rowling clung to writing. She would walk Jessica in her pram to a nearby cafe, order a single espresso to justify her seat, and write for hours while the baby slept. Every word was a battle. Not just against the page, but against self-doubt, poverty, and mental illness. Her only escape was the magical world she was creating. A boy named Harry who didn't know his worth until he was chosen for greatness. Sound familiar? Once the manuscript was finished, Rowling typed it on a borrowed typewriter, 2 copies, because she couldn't afford a third. She sent it to 12 publishers. Every single one rejected her. Most didn't bother with feedback. One returned it without reading. One told her, children's books just don't sell anymore. But she believed in it, so she kept trying. Finally, the manuscript landed on the desk of an editor at Bloomsbury Publishing. The chairman's 8-year-old daughter read the first chapter and immediately asked for more. That's how Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was published, with a first print run of just 500 copies. Even then, Rowling was advised to get a day job, because there's no money in children's fiction. Within months, the book caught fire. Then came awards. Then came international deals. Then came the US release, where Scholastic bought the rights for $105,000, a record at the time for a debut children's novel. That check changed her life. And yet, she still lived modestly, fearing the dream might disappear. But it didn't. The Harry Potter series sold over 500 million copies, translated into 80+ languages, turned into a billion-dollar film empire, and inspired generations of readers. Rowling went from benefits to billionaire, but more than that, she became a voice for resilience. J.K. Rowling has always said, "I didn't write Harry Potter to become rich. I wrote it because I needed to." That's the real magic of her story. She faced grief, rejection, poverty, depression, but she didn't let it define her. She used it. She poured it into a story that reminded people, especially young people, that no matter where you come from, you have power, worth, and a place in the world. J.K. Rowling's life is proof that failure is not final. She lost everything. She had every reason to give up. But instead, she picked up a pen and built a legacy. So if you're struggling right now, if you feel unseen, unheard, unimportant, just remember, even the most powerful stories start with a blank page. This is Legacy Files. Real stories, real lessons. Subscribe for more powerful true stories that remind you what's possible.